You should watch this movie, Shawnee.
But why, Nathan?
Are you asking me why should I watch? You are listening to Why Should I Watch, the podcast about movies and ideas. Hey, Shawnee.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, you know.
Do you think I actually care when I ask that? Because I do. I just want you to know.
I don't think
that
you are. Well, because we do so many pods per day,
yeah.
I think you're getting sick of the same answer.
Well, because you're still good. I assume you're good from half an hour ago.
I'm still good.
Yeah. But this was actually a few days ago because, you know, we do 2 a week now.
Yeah, exactly.
We're powering through.
So in the last week, it's been great. I'm about to go to the Gold Coast, actually.
That's a good story.
It's quite exciting. I need a break from you.
You're probably actually already there when this is released. Because this is getting released. So you're sending this from the Gold. Okay. Today we're talking about Jigsaw, which is a film that's going to be released in 2017.
Yes, correct.
October 27th on my birthday. It's because it's a scary horror film.
Horror.
It is a continuation of the Saw franchise, which actually wrapped up in 2010 with Saw 3D.
Oh,
I don't want to talk about that film because it was...
How many Saws have there been?
There have been 7. So Saw 3D was the 7th one. So this is technically the 8th in the series. But it's like going to be a semi-reboot, I'm told. So the Saw... So how many of them have you seen? 1 and 2?
I've seen 1 and 2, and I've seen a little bit of 3.
And then you gave up?
And then I gave up.
Yeah, so the Saw franchise, it's basically centered around this guy called Jigsaw, who's he's sort of a serial killer, but his thing is that he doesn't kill people directly. What he does is he puts them in a series, like a trap, and they have to they have to maim a part of their body, like they have to lose their eyes or they have to cut their leg off or something. They have to do something disgusting in order to get out of the trap and live.
Yeah.
And the reason he does it is basically he thinks they're not appreciating their life. So he is... he gets his backstory in some of the later Saw films, but basically what he does is he observes people, and people are not appreciating their lives. The example I'll take from the first one was one of the guys is like a photographer, and he like photographs people, and he just basically does nothing with his life. He's sort of just a layabout who just does these shitty jobs. And the other one's a doctor who's cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
So he takes people that are sort of like not living their life right.
Yeah.
And he puts them through a series of he puts them through torture, basically,
the quote that
so
he
they
says,
understand their life.
Like, how much does your life mean to you?
Exactly,
or something?
yeah. And he says, like, I want to play a game, and they have to play this game to get out.
Okay.
And yeah, basically what he does say is, this is a test to see how much you appreciate your life.
Yeah.
Because a trap will kill them after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless they
do something
to themselves. Yeah.
Life-changing, yeah.
And that's why the original movie was called Saw, because, spoiler, the guy cuts his leg off with a saw in the end because he gets a saw.
Very, very clever.
Yeah, very clever.
James Wan, you've done it again.
It was created by Lee Winnell and James Wan, who, even though this film was made in America, they're actually from Melbourne. They're Melbourne boys, from Scoresby, which is actually the next suburb over from Rowville, our hometown. And another fun fact is that my media teacher, I don't know if you ever had Mrs. Collins because she was from the East. No. Anyway, my media teacher actually taught him media.
Really?
And she told us about how, she just knew he was always going to make it because he was so dedicated to filmmaking. Hopefully when we do this as a proper ep, hopefully we can have her on and she can tell us about what he was like.
Yeah,
that'd be
fantastic.
And she knows everything about movies as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's the hope with this. But this is just a future review today.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm optimistic. I hope that they can turn the franchise around because critically, its average is 27% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh.
The highest rated film was the first one, which got 48%.
Oh gosh, really?
So
48?
Yeah, it hasn't even cracked 50 yet.
I didn't think it was that bad.
I thought it was good. I thought the original was like a classic, and it sort of it did start to go downhill. But a bit of a backstory quickly. So it was only conceived as one movie by Lee Winnell and James Wan, who actually James Wan's better known now. He directed Fast and Furious 7.
Yes, yep.
And he's done a lot of other films since. And Lee Winnell's since gone on to do the Insidious films.
Okay, yep. Wasn't James Wan a part of The Conjuring and Annabelle?
I think so as well.
Producing,
maybe,
yeah.
Or... He produced. He's more of a director, but he does produce.
He's got ties to it.
Oh, absolutely. So, just the backstory though. So, they got it made by. They had the script, and they went over to LA and pitched it, and it got sort of picked up by Lionsgate. And Twisted Pictures, which is a company that likes to do sort of indie horror films, did it, and it just became a massive success. The original film was made on a budget of just over $1 million, and it made $103 million at the box office.
God.
So it made over 100 times its budget, which as any that's just insane because it's about 4 times a budget is considered a successful film.
Yeah.
So that's just crazy money. Okay, so Saw 2 was actually it got picked up instantly for a sequel based on that amount of money.
Yeah,
but they had no idea what they were going to base it on because they had no story past the original. Because the original ends in such a way that the twist is... So this is what... These films are known for their twists. And in the original, the 2 guys who I just said before, one of them is actually played by Lee Winnell, who's the photographer, and then Carrie Elwes plays the doctor, Dr. Gordon.
Yeah.
They wake up in this room together, and they actually realize they're connected. Lee Winnell's character's name's Adam, and it turns out he was taking photos of Dr. Gordon. He was spying on him, and he was the one that was sort of not a private investigator, but he was taking the photos of him cheating on his wife and everything.
Yeah.
And there was a dead guy in the middle of the room, which at the twist of the film turns out that was Jigsaw the whole time.
Yeah.
And he locks him in the door and says game over. And it was a nice little end to that story. 2 guys this guy's
yeah. You don't need 7 movies after that. That's it's a nice roundabout film.
So what happened though was this guy called Darren Lynn Bousman had a film called The Desperate, and he was trying to get it picked up, but every producer that looked at it said it's too much like Saw, because what it was a group of people are in a house, and they know they're connected in some way, and they've got to work out how they were connected before the time runs out and they all die. And they were like, that's like, a sadistic guy who's trapped all these people. It's just like Saw. So what happened was there was this German company that offered to make it for him for $1 million, give him $1 million budget to make it.
Yeah.
And they gave him the cinematographer, who was David A. Armstrong, who was actually the cinematographer on the original Saw. And he said, hang on a minute. He's like, I could take this to the producer and we could maybe see if they want to do it as the sequel. So they took it to this guy called Greg Hoffman, who was a producer of the original Saw. And he took it to Lee Winnell and James Wan, and they loved it. And they decided to make that the story of their second Saw film. And you may remember the way the characters are connected in Saw 2. So they all wake up in the house and they're kind of they're all a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And it turns out they were all false. They all had false evidence planted on them by the detective in the Saw 2 film, who was actually played by Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh, I remember
New Kids on the Block.
I remember Donnie Wahlberg.
Donnie Wahlberg is he's not he's a corrupt cop because he plants evidence, but the idea was that all these guys wanted to kill him because he put them all away. They were all criminals, but he falsified evidence to get them put away.
That's right.
And Jigsaw put the trap on him and locked his son up and all that as well.
Doesn't Donnie try and go after Jigsaw?
Yeah, the climax is Saw.
I think.
Yeah, well, in Saw 2, they break into the warehouse where he is, and he's dying of cancer. So that's the other thing is, Jigsaw's actually got cancer, and that's when he realized that, and he tried to kill himself, and he drove his car off a cliff and actually survived, and that's when he realized that he needed to appreciate his life more, and he'd make his life mission to educate people to appreciate their lives more, for some reason by torturing them.
Not becoming a motivational speaker.
No.
But by putting them through grueling tests.
Yeah, and then he ended up one of the girls from the original movie turned out to be his apprentice. And basically what it is he's kind of like a cult leader in that some people that survive his traps get the Stockholm syndrome and want to help him because they appreciate their lives and then they understand his message and want to do it.
Yeah.
Because Shawnee Smith, who played Linda in the Saw film, becomes his apprentice, and he dies. He actually dies at the end of Saw 3. The twist in Saw 4 was it was happening at the same time as Saw 3. That's the twist.
This is where it gets confusing.
Yeah, and it gets really complicated. And then Saw 5 and Saw 6 go on. Ugh. And Saw 7, it's his legacy's kept on.
How, though? How?
Through kind of... It's through the idea is that he's had this master plan, and he keeps getting his... they're kind of his disciples, really. He's the leader, and then they sort of follow his message. Whatever. And at the end of Saw 7, or Saw 3D, it turns out the twist is that Dr. Gordon from the original, because the original is he cuts off his leg and he escapes, and it turns out that he's been the one carrying on the legacy the whole time.
Yeah. So
Saw 8, which is now called Jigsaw, was originally going to be called Saw Legacy, and it was him carrying on it's going to be his legacy carried on. So it's confirmed that Tobin Bell, who plays Jigsaw, is actually going to be in the film.
Okay.
In some respects. So it's probably going to be more like flashbacks.
Because
the narrative of Saw is really heavily told through flashbacks, where we find out the characters' lives and how they're intertwined. And And there's obviously going to be like traps. There's going to be the classic music, the da-na-na,
Give me that
da-na-na, na-na-na-na-na.
You've got a lot of numbers here. I as a businessman, I love the numbers.
Analyze the numbers. I've put how much it's returned.
So it's always made 100% profit.
Except Saw 6. Saw 6 only made 68 million, which was the only time it made under 100.
I thought there was a 1 there.
No, that's 68.
Oh, you do your dollar signs with
I
two.
I do
lines.
them with 2. Yeah,
weird.
I should do them with 1. And then, so the highest grossing one is Saw 3, which made 164 million.
Jeez, from 18 million.
And the final one, Saw 3D, which was in 2010, made 136 million. But see, its budget was up to 17 million. So as movies go on, obviously their budget goes up and their profits sort of go down. And it gets to a point where it's not worth making another one.
Yeah.
Especially when like people get tired of seeing that stuff.
Well, I think I think after a nice trilogy, really, it should have just, I think they just got.
Well, it came to a thing where it was like one every year. It was like 2004 was Saw, then Saw 2 was 2005.
See, that's what I was saying
so on and on.
last week in the It review.
Yes.
That, you have all these horror movies coming out every year.
Yeah.
It's like the Star Wars films as well. It loses its steam.
They tire out, and that's why I think with Saw 6 making like under 70 million, it was a big disappointment. And I think they'd already had Saw 3D in the works, like it had already been funded and everything, so they made it.
Yeah.
And then I think they realized it's just not worth to continue it, so they've given it an 7-year rest, and it's coming out again. And I really hope it's directed by they're called the Spierig brothers, Michael and Peter Spierig. They're actually Aussies. And they've made some Australian horror films, which are kind of cult classics.
Okay, cool.
Which we should probably check out at some point to see how they are. But I hope what they do is like kind of what J.J. Abrams did with Star Wars 7 and sort of go back to the roots a little bit and try and rediscover what was good about the first film.
Good.
And not ignore like what came after, but go back to the original elements.
Just a nice plot twist.
Yeah, I'd love to see it as...
That's all it is, really.
Yeah, well, the plot twist has to be good, but what I'd love...
Story.
We know that Jigsaw's dead. He's definitely died. So what I'd like to see is, going back to the original, have 2 people in a room. They're connected in some way. And the trap is something not ridiculously complicated. Because they got really... There was one where it's like the guy had to like... it was like a slaughterhouse, and he had to like slaughter pigs and get covered in pig slop. And he would get like mixed in with it or something. It got really complicated.
Bloody hell.
And there was one that was like the way Donnie Wahlberg's character died was 2 ice cubes smashed his head up together, and that just got a bit ridiculous. Like,
I was a bit sad that Donnie died.
Because the other thing was John Kramer, who's the human name of the Jigsaw character, like the guy's name. He was an engineer, and that was how they justified that he could make all these traps.
I don't know if it was from the second or third, but I remember his wife was pregnant.
Yes, and the
door hits her.
Yes,
and she like.
She had a miscarriage, yeah. He basically had like tragedy after tragedy.
What movie was that from?
That was, I believe, Saw 3. Saw 3 is where most of his backstory is given, and then he dies.
Okay, yeah.
And then he dies at the end of it. But see, Saw 4, you're watching it thinking he's died, but he's at the end of Saw 4, and you realise that Saw 4 has been happening at the same time as Saw 3. So then Saw 5, 6, and 7 are kind of a trilogy where his legacy is being carried on.
I'm trying to think. I remember another death scene. I'm just trying, like... As you're talking about this, little fragments are coming back.
Yeah.
There's one... They're on like a carousel or something, spinning around.
Yes, that I think that was Saw 5. Saw 4 or 5, yeah.
And there's one... This actually... Oh, gosh. I remember being very sickened by this. I actually had to leave the room.
Yeah.
Which is a first. But there's a girl, she's sitting on a bed, and there's like knives.
Yeah.
And she has to push her face
through the knives. That was Saw 2.
And it's just the screeching sound of knife to bone.
I think the most disgusting one was in Saw 2, where there's like... What happened is they're all poisoned. Like the house is filling with a toxic gas, and they got to get the antidote.
Yes, that's right.
And it's in this glass cabinet, so she puts her hand through, but it's metal blades that are one way. And stupidly, she puts both hands in, so she can't get them out, and she bleeds out, and like all the blood drips down. Yeah. And so that's the thing. What I really don't want to see is, I hope it's not just gross out humor. Not humor, horror. It's like body horror. I want it to be like it's attached to the psychological thriller. Because Saw, as I think we were saying in that childhood horror film, Saw was the film that... It was basically like a switch for me where I stopped getting scared by films and I started to get really interested in the psychological aspects. It was probably one of the reasons why I got into psychology, actually, is that I realized that I like the meaning behind things. And like, it wasn't just that the characters would cutting themselves open and shit, but like it was about watching them. They're so willing to live that they will hurt themselves to do it.
Yeah,
exactly. So if they do it right, I will give it. Hopefully, it'll be another 4 stars. That's what I'm hoping it'll be. Otherwise, it'll be like 2.5 if they ruin it.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be. I agree. Like, I don't want it just to be like a gore fest.
No, if they do that, they'll blow it.
You know, just like a little bit like over exaggerating the gore and the blood. I want it just to be just as simple as cutting off your leg.
Yeah.
Or, you know, even digging into someone's guts is a bit extreme.
Yeah, that was the first film where she had to cut her roommate's guts open. I think
self-pain is more...
Yeah.
Is tougher to watch.
I hope they go back, keep it simple. Two main cast members, some other character that Jigsaw's like kept on his legacy. Maybe like you know, hopefully none of the past characters. I hope it's someone new that they bring in that's sort of been there the whole time in the shadows and comes out.
Yeah.
And they've got to have Billy the Puppet too, which is that freaky horror character.
Oh, he'll be in it. He'll be in it. He'll get he'll get
on the tricycle. Reveal. That's the whole.
He'll get a great reveal, and the audience will go, "Woo!" Everyone will be so happy.
Yeah.
But I think it'll still get like 2 stars, maybe.
Okay. You reckon 2? I hope it's 4, but I hope they don't blow it.
They will.
Like Freddy. Don't blow it.
Why Should I Watch is a Skinny White Boy production. For more information, visit www.skinnywhiteboy.com.